Welcome to Result Leaders today. I'm Nick Bogacz. I hope you enjoy my story.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
You are listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Welcome back to another edition. And today I've got another amazing interview. In fact, this was my favorite interview to date. This guy used to work 90 hours a week as a pizza driver, and he went from driver to driving a business to 10 million in annual revenue. And when you hear this interview, you will find out the secret to his success. And a spoiler alert here. The secret, we all have it. It's right in between our two ears. Today I have Mr. Nick Bogacz, the world pizza champion. We're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about growth. We're going to talk about not letting your past define you. Such a powerful interview. Let's jump in. Nick, welcome to the show, brother. How goes it?
Yeah, fantastic. Wonderful spring day here in Pittsburgh, PA, and I'm happy to be on the show today. Thanks for having me.
Well, I got to say, man, this is a first for the show. We have never had a world pizza champion on our show. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And let's jump into the first question, which is a softball. What book or books have you given most as a gift?
Yeah, so real simple. Think and Grow Rich is definitely one of my favorites to give as a gift for sure. That's been a book that has really shaped my mindset and my thinking. I guess another one is, I like to give the book that I'm currently reading sometimes. I think that's a neat gift. I was recently, I'm reading the 4 Agreements. I was going to a 40th birthday party and I brought along the 4 Agreements to give as a gift. And I ordered an extra one off of Amazon. And I just think that's a nice touch sometimes too, is just the book that I'm currently reading.
All right. So Think and Grow Rich is one of the most popular ones we get. And I always like to know, how did you find that book, or how did it find you?
Yeah, fantastic question. Because I think that's probably the most interesting part of that is that in the beginning, I didn't go to college. I started in the pizza industry at 17 as a pizza driver. I worked my way up, and to give you the quick version, I found myself 28, 2 kids that were like 8 and 6 years old with a wife, and happily married, but working 80 hours a week at a pizzeria along with other jobs. And what I noticed was I was in a college town, and I would have guys come up to me. My whole staff was in college, and they would say, "Hey, I need off this weekend because I need to read for my class." And I was like, "Well, okay, what are you reading?" And they would, whatever book it may be. And this became a common theme that these kids needed off every weekend to read. And I was like, man, is that what college is? Is that what I missed out on was reading and learning? Like, I think I'm gonna put myself through college. So I started really becoming an avid reader at 28. And I would just, if I wanted to learn negotiating, I'd read 6 months worth of negotiating books. Like, that was how I felt like I was going to put myself through college, quote unquote. I was going to take negotiating 101. If I want to learn personal finance, I'd read every personal finance book I could for the next 6 months. And as I got into personal finance and then into personal growth, what I noticed was there was one, how when you read a book, that there'll be somebody will mention another book inside that book, like the author mentions a book. And what happened was they kept mentioning this Think and Grow Rich book. And I was like, this is like the 4th book I read that mentions this book. Like, what is this? And I read it, and a lot of things started to kind of formulate in my mind. And a lot of it is I always thought of how am I going to get money for my own business? I can't get money. I don't know how to get it. Banks won't even talk to me. And then when I read the book, I realized the how doesn't matter. You just have to have the idea formulated and really see yourself in that position. And then the how works itself out. And that's really what I took from the book. And then I found, this is back around early 2000s, 2008, 2009. So I guess right around then. And that's when The Secret came out, the movie. I watched The Secret, and it kind of helped put the book more into perspective. And then I found like over the last 12 years, I can't tell you how many times I've read Think and Grow Rich. I read it at least once a year, if not twice. I mean, I watch The Secret probably 2 to 4 times a year. I've gone in seminars and watched Bob Proctor live teach seminars. And it's just, I really become a student of the law of attraction and just the power of mindset.
Another first. You are the first person to mention Bob Proctor. I love that. You're going so old school. Nobody talks about these guys anymore. Napoleon Hill, Bob Proctor, all these old school guys, man. But that's where all this personal development, that's where Tony Robbins got all this from. Tony gets all the credit, but he was getting it from these guys before then. So I'm so glad you brought that name up. Let's talk about a subject I'm sure you're familiar with. I know I'm familiar with it. Let's talk about failure. And what I'd like to know is how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
So I think the whole thing with failure is it's almost just like another part of problem solving. Like you're going to have times where you go through something that doesn't work, but you just have to sit back and look at where you didn't go correct. I don't want to say even where you went wrong, but what I found with anything is when you can get down to being really honest with yourself and being self-aware with yourself and really being honest of who you are, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing when to ask for help. I think that can really help you get in a spot where you're not seeing so many failures. You're seeing more successes because you're being really honest with yourself. So when something goes wrong, what I do is grab my dog and we go for a one-way walk. And I don't turn around until I can blame myself for what went wrong. And that's really hard because a lot of times you're not going to want to blame yourself. You're like, there's no way that I did anything wrong. And then when you get down to it, you're like, you know what? This is where I could have done better. And this is the lesson that I'm going to learn from it. And then we turn around and go back home and think about it more. And I think when you get honest with yourself and you become self-aware, you can really kind of minimize the failures you're going to have. But I think you just got to be honest with yourself with anything that doesn't go the way that you want it to go.
So there's a couple things I want to talk about there. Number one, I want to shine the spotlight on a choice of word there that Nick just used so you guys can understand that this guy's evolved. He said, what I could have done better, keeping the power, could have done better rather than I should have, the shame version of that makes people feel bad. That's an empowered version. I could have made this better. Want to point that out. Very evolved. And I want you to just, if you can, tell us what being self-aware means to you.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning, when you get older and you get out of your parents' house, I think you've been conditioned a certain way, not good, not bad, but you've been conditioned. And I think when you're aware of the way that you've been conditioned, you can open yourself up to more possibilities, and whether your family grew up talking bad about money or, good about money, or the way that they talk about, if they comments that maybe somebody always said the way you acted was crazy or whatever it would be. And you form a plan of that's how you kind of feel. And I think when you realize that maybe some of those, you've just been conditioned to think that way. They're not necessarily true, but you've known them as true because you've heard them over time. And when you start to realize, like, you're honest with yourself of like, okay, here's what I do really well. Here's what I can do better. This might be something to work on, maybe something not to work on, and I think you can really change those opinions of yourself and you can give yourself a different perspective of who you really are. But I think you have to realize that you're conditioned a certain way. And that's part of being self-aware, that you realize that everything that you've heard in your life has conditioned you to be a certain way. And that's why with my kids, I think I realized that. And one of the things that I did since they were young ages, I always told them that they could do whatever they wanted. And I said, look, even if at some point you come to me with something that you want to do in your adult life, and I'm the one telling you can't do that, like, don't listen to me. You can do anything you want to do. You have to listen to yourself. So I think trying to make sure that some of the things that we condition our kids to do, we were trying to condition in the right positive mindset and give them a good thinking for when they get out in the quote unquote real world.
The real world. Yeah, I hear. Have you read, just out of curiosity, total sidebar, have you read Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics?
I have not.
Put it on your list, man. I think you'll really enjoy it. It sounds like you're in the right place for that. But that programming that you're talking about, that's what we all have. We were programmed by our parents the best they could. And what we have to realize is we can rewrite our program. We have that option as evolved human beings. So let's talk about investments. Nick, what would you say is the most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
I think that's an easy one with the topic that we're talking about. Definitely myself, and maybe that's the canned answer, but it's true. Like there's been times I went to a seminar back in 2016. I really got into Darren Hardy. I like the compound effect. I like the entrepreneurial roller coaster, and I wanted to go see him speak at a seminar. And what I realized real quickly was like Darren doesn't do the seminars like everybody else does, like $500, $800, $1,000. You can go with a room like a 5,000 people and listen to him. He doesn't do those. What he did do is like a $12,000 3-day, 24-hour business. It's not personal growth. It was more business growth. And I was like, I guess I'm going to do this. I really wanted to go. I'd never been to California. I'd never been past pretty much Ohio, maybe Vegas a couple of times, but really never been to California. So I went, I took some extra time. It was just myself. It was really like when I look back at it now, it was like a powerful time. And I went through it and pulled out a lot of great ideas. It was all on businesses, how to make your business grow. And, for a while there, I wondered if I really got the investment back. I was like, he was really good at, those guys get really good at their sales pitch and their guarantees and everything like that. I mean, they're super, most of them when they get to that caliber. And I wondered if the sales funnels, everything, I mean, they're so good at it. And I wondered if I really got the investment. But then when I look back at all the things that I took from that class and the ideas that I got and the ideas that I did from going there, yeah, I think when they say you get 10 times your investment, like I probably got probably 50 times my investment out of that. There was a lot of great ideas I got out of that. They pushed me to write a book in there. They said, if you own a business and you don't have a book, you could become an industry thought leader by writing a book. You automatically get to the top of the list. And I went back and I wrote a book called The Pizza Equation. And from that, I got a keynoting at our annual pizza convention, which is a big deal in the pizza industry. And since then, we had 2 or 3 stores. We were doing maybe $2-3 million. We're doing $8 to $10 million a year in sales. There's so many different ideas that we brought back and started from his ideas, rewrote the way our branding was, our advertising. Like when I look back at all those things that I did out of that one class, it was just crazy when I try to put a value on that. So then from that investment, I mentioned Bob Proctor. So each year, last year was weird with COVID, but I did do a couple virtual things, but I didn't feel like I got the same value out of them. It's hard doing it in your home office, but I do feel like going to at least 1, if not 2 seminars a year has been a good investment for me. I've made sure that I'm going to go somewhere for a couple of days and kind of immerse myself. We do a lot of things with my teams where we'll go to these conventions and different speakers inside the industry. But what I found is, I get a lot of value out of kind of going with myself and just myself and kind of having that self-reflection time when I go to the seminars too. So yeah, I think seminars has definitely been probably the biggest investment in myself.
Man, you're making me miss. I haven't, in the last year, it's been so damn long since I've been to one. It's like, oh man, I'm jonesing for that too. Cool. So in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
I think in the last 5 years is where I've really gotten self-aware, going back to that. Like, I think there was a point where I didn't really think too much about what I was doing as far as like who I really was. Like I would hear a lot of things like, oh, you're a great communicator, you're a great leader, or, and you hear the other things like maybe there's some things that pop up like I was talking that are preconditioned or that you hear all the time. But I don't think I really understood to embrace the things that you do great. The things that you do really, really well, embrace them, like own them. If someone takes a liking to your communication skills or your leadership skills, like embrace them. And that's where I think you have to really get uncomfortable a little bit. Like I think if most people are pretty humble and they don't want to embrace those great qualities that they have, but we're given gifts. And I think when we really think about the gifts that we've been given and embrace them, I think it can really be powerful and change your life.
What I hear you saying, and this is what I've been missing my in person. I used to go once a quarter to Strategic Coach, but ever since the changes, they tried to do them on Zoom, and I was like, no, no way, I'm not doing it. But what I hear you talking about is unique ability and really leaning into your unique ability so that you can serve the people around you at the highest possible level. I love that concept. So let's talk about bad recommendations. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
I think what's tough is, I don't know if it's really bad recommendations, but when you hear negative energy, for example, like I'm in the restaurant space right now, and people everywhere in the restaurant space, and really in the job market in general are just talking about how horrible the hiring is right now. Like that is the focus, like that you can't get employees, can't keep employees. When you buy into that and let that consume you, whatever it is, whether it's that or something else, when you let negative energy come in, that's what you get. Negative energy in, negative energy out. So you're never going to find the employees that you need when you're thinking like that. So, it's really hard to, when you're hearing this from all different, everywhere you turn on the news, they're talking about it. Pick up the Facebook and there's an article from the New York Times there, like everything is talking about. So like to really focus on the good and really think about, how, yes, people are coming in to work here. We've created a great environment. They want to work here. People are coming. We can feel that they're coming in. They're going to want to work here. We're going to get great people. We're going to get great managers. And we're going to get a happy staff. Like, we're going to keep adding people to our team. Like when you start trying to think like that and combat the negative energy out there, it takes a special skill to stay positive. And I think that's kind of the thing in any industry, is to stay away from that negative energy.
Powerful, powerful. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into this show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. #ResultsLeaderFM. Now let's jump back into the interview. All right, now we're going to get into what the show is really about. We're going to talk about results. And the first question I have under results is, why do results matter?
Well, I think results matter because they make you feel good. And I think when you achieve your goals, they kind of confirm that you've done a great job. People like feeling a sense of accomplishment. And I think it's really important when you go ahead and you accomplish these things and you've got your successes, that you celebrate them. I think it's really important. When you get to the point where you're getting the results you want, make sure you take a moment and enjoy the journey, as people say, and just celebrate those victories, whether it's a nice meal, or, if you're into a nice bottle of wine, or whatever it is, or maybe it's an afternoon doing one of your favorite hobbies. Maybe it's like, hey, I haven't gone fishing in forever, like because I've been working so hard. I'm going to grab my pole and go for 3 hours today. I deserve it. I got my goal. I'm going to reward myself. So, whatever it may be, I think it's important as you get results to really enjoy those moments, like celebrate them for sure.
Man, that is sage advice. Well, there's people on either side of that, right? People that are celebrating all the time and not getting results, and then people that are just punishing themselves and suffering. But where you're going to spend most of your life is in the journey. So you have to celebrate those little wins. That is so powerful. So now let's think back. In the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results in your business?
I think really one of the realizations is the power of communication, because when you really get down to anything in life, communication is key. Whether it's your relationship with your spouse, or relationship with your kids, or relationship with your employees, or your vendors, or your salespeople, or whatever it may be, communication is key. And I think really developing a schedule to communicate is important. And what I found is, in a business, when you are trying to set meetings up, whatever your business is, keep it professional, keep a tight meeting, keep a schedule of we're going to meet every Monday at this time. It's going to go this long. This is what's going to be covered, and make it routine. And people know that, that they shouldn't be scheduling doctor's appointments during that time. They shouldn't be scheduling other things at that time, because that's every week. This is when we're meeting. And I think they shouldn't schedule appointments or sales calls at those times. They should schedule the meeting at that time all the time. And I think when you're really communicating that and have a finger on the pulse of where the room temperature of where you're trying to control. So if it's your business and who's happy, who's not happy, what motivates them, what doesn't motivate them. And then you can take your communication skills and really craft that kind of message to them. I think that becomes more powerful for you. So I think really in the last 5 years, I really focus on becoming a better communicator to my team.
I want to point something out that people may miss here. When I asked the question earlier, what belief, behavior, habit has most improved your life? You answered, my self-awareness. That's internal communication with yourself. And now outwardly focused, the best results that you're getting is your communication with your team. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we want a better life, we have to start to change from inside, as you have just demonstrated, which I love. We didn't plan that. So let's keep going here, man. What area of your business would you like better results?
It's one of those things that there's so many different areas of business. I think talking about like the team atmosphere and the staffing, like that's definitely an area that needs a lot of focus. But I think when you get down to really what drives a business, a lot of times it's the actual day-to-day operations. And I think that's where when COVID hit, everybody was scrambling for, different ways to quote unquote pivot. And I think really what we try to do was say, let's get back to our operations. Let's get back to what made us successful in the very beginning. Get back to how we do things day to day, the daily training, the daily communicating of this is the way that restaurant is run and the way that we do things on a daily and shift by shift basis. And let's really get back to the very basics of what built the company. And when we work on those operations, I think that's where the company gets stronger. So I think that working on operations can always be a movement, that you're always working on building the operations and having a sound operating team. And then you can really train from that. So I think building the operations up of your company is probably the thing that we like to focus on the most. And we feel like we can always go back and focus on it.
Excellent. What results are you most proud of?
Wow, that's a great question. There's a lot of proud moments in what we've done. I think, I really being named to the World Pizza Champions team for me was probably one of the greatest accomplishments that I was really happy of. When I started in the pizza industry, I was in Papa John's and Domino's for so long and didn't understand the independent side of the pizzerias. And then when I got into the independent pizzerias, I met Tony Giminani, who is, if you've ever seen anybody on the late night shows or anywhere on TV making pizzas, it's probably Tony. Definitely like our industry's legend. And, early on, I had the opportunity to have Tony inside my restaurant to promote his book, The Pizza Bible. And this was about 6 years ago. And I really, from that moment on, Tony had this team called the World Pizza Champions that traveled all over the world competing. And there was only 35 people on the team. And it was the greatest honor in our industry is to get named to that team. So fast forward 4 years later and developing a relationship with Tony, having our team win World Pizza Champions awards, winning championships in Vegas, really positioned us in a way that when we come back from Vegas, I'll never forget the call I got from Tony asking me to be on the team. And that was just a great sense of pride, because when I started Caliente Pizza and Draft House, I wasn't one of those guys that said we had a great pizza. Everybody says that when they open a pizza shop. I realized that if I focus on the beer, I could put people inside the restaurant and fill up the restaurant, because craft beer, 2012 to 2016, 17, and it's still popular. But I mean, that was like the peak of how popular craft beer was. So I didn't understand beer at all. I actually don't even drink. So it was like one of those things that I realized that was where the power of bringing everyone in was in the craft beer. So I learned it. And we became one of the top craft beer bars in Pittsburgh. And that was how we built our, made our chops and really built everything up. And then from that, when I got recognized by Tony and being named to the team and winning the championships, we came full circle. So I was like, all right, I'm finally can be the pizza guy I've always wanted to be. I couldn't be that for a moment because we were so, I was this beer guru that everyone, when I would tell them what the beer tasted like and what beer was popular and everything else, I had so much knowledge that when people find out that I didn't even drink the beer, that they couldn't fathom that. But I was this, the biggest beer geek without ever drinking. I mean, that's what I was. And when I finally got recognized in the pizza world for being a great pizzaola and really a pizza entrepreneur, that's when I felt really good about the accomplishments.
Man, I love it. So we're coming up on the end. Any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders out there?
Yeah, I think what's important is don't let your past define you. I like to say that when people ask me the question you just asked, like, what's the parting thoughts? I think a lot of times, I kind of give a real quick insight to, I don't drink, but we bought the pizzeria. It really was a bar. There was 10 taps, a full liquor, everything there was. And at that point I had 7 years of sobriety. So I wouldn't even go to the liquor store for my wife to pick up a bottle of wine for a party she was having. I said, I don't drink. You got to go to the liquor store. And here we were buying a bar. So it was, and she said, you're going to be okay. And I said, yeah, it's a means to the ends. That's what this is. And don't let your past define you and start now. If you're on the fence about starting and going for your dream, like start now. Don't worry about where your past took you or what happened there. And sometimes you have to forgive other people. And almost more importantly, sometimes you have to forgive yourself. And once you can really get to that point, you can start. So, I really challenge people to just don't let the past define you.
Powerful words, man. So I already know our listeners are going to love you. So where can they go to find out more about you, Nick?
Yeah, thanks for that. So they can go to every Monday. I have a new episode of the Business Equation podcast on all platforms. And the solution is in the mindset. So it's a mindset focused podcast for entrepreneurs. They can also find me at nickbogacz.com, which is Bogacz. And I have given out my phone number. If anybody wants to text me, 412-818-3402. And of course, Nick Bogacz at all social media platforms, including LinkedIn.
We will have links in the show notes to all of that to make sure people can connect with you. Nick Bogacz was our guest today. Thank you, brother, for sharing. This is got to be one of my favorite interviews. I love the mindset. And thank you, our dear listeners, for tuning in. That is a wrap for another ResultsLeader.fm. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.